happens. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. I hit the record button, I think. Figure out what happens. And so this is me real quick. I'm working from home today. Did shower, ironed a shirt. I want to have this be a really laid-back, casual conversation if we can. I just want to run through some things as for those who I did kind of a here's what we're going to do. Just give you some idea of what's going on in Minneapolis, the Midwest. Things that I've seen since Mini Bar in April. Mini Demo was last week. And then just some observations in general. So I'm going to turn my video off here. And again, in the chat box, feel free, and actually I really want you to, any questions that you have, things that are on your mind or whatnot, please go ahead and enter them in there. So a little bit about me, for those of you who don't know like who I am or what my story is. I've been recruiting here in Minneapolis, St. Paul for about the last it's actually 19 plus years now. Spend about 85% of my time recruiting in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then another 10% in the Midwest. And by that, my definition of the Midwest is like here, Madison, Ann Arbor, Indianapolis, and then sort of Southwest, St. Louis, Kansas City, Denver, Fargo. That's 10% of my sort of recruiting. And the other 5% are the folks, primarily on the West Coast, who are from my definition of the Midwest. And so that's kind of my recruiting, mostly in the technology, product, data, digital space, and then every now and again too, right, it's a senior role, chief marketing officer or something like that, but most of it's in technology and helping grow teams. And so not doing so much the contingent recruiter stuff I did for most of my career, the last 5 years now, or coming up on 5 years, it's been helping grow teams. So I've been running the blog, Minnesota Headhunter blog, since 2005, do some speaking stuff, Midwest Recruiting Bootcamp, I'll mention that here in a minute, and then pretty active in the technology community. So a little bit of what I've been up to for a few slides, because summertime, I like to slow down, which is really to say is that I work really hard and then I try not to. So it's extremes, work really hard, then not to. So here, the bottom photo there, that's Cocoa, Minneapolis, the co-working space in downtown Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Grain Exchange. Been spending a lot of time there. The upper left-hand corner is a new client that just brought on yesterday called Livefront, a fantastic app, mostly app shop here in Minneapolis that spends about 50% of its time with Fortune 500 groups and 50% time working with startups. And so been lots of Cocoa time, lots of client time. And then for those of you who follow me anywhere else, that's also my dock time that you're seeing there. That was now to date, the biggest walleye I've caught so far. And been enjoying, I moved out of downtown Minneapolis earlier this spring out to the Lake Minnetonka area. And so been fishing on a dock many evenings. And so fishing's been pretty good. So helps kind of de-stress things a little bit. So that's what it's been too, right? Work, little play. August 31st, or check that, July 31st, August 1st, putting on my first Midwest Recruiting Bootcamp. And so this has actually been dominating a lot of my time the last couple of weeks. 10 speakers, 2 days at the University of Minnesota. The idea being is that a lot of my recruiter and HR friends, regardless of company size or who they're recruiting for, have just been talking about recruiting has gotten tough, the economy is good, people have choices. And so we're bringing in a bunch of people from around the country and a few local folks, and we're going to get our learning on. So if you go to my blog, upper tab, or the navigation bar at the top, click Recruiting Bootcamp, you can find out more about that. A little bit about the work stuff. Couple new clients, finishing up on a couple. So Livefront, currently looking for an Android developer, and then wanting to network for some hiring later this year with iOS developers and also some digital designers. Kitizen's a startup here in Minneapolis that raised a round of funding early this spring. It's been around for 5, 6, 7 years now. And they have grown their team from 4 to probably 12 or 13, and then still looking to talk to some Ruby developers, on the intermediate side of things. And then they're also just always going to be looking going forward for people with marketing, analytics, technology background. TCF Banks, since almost the beginning of the year, helping build a couple of different data and BI teams. And then SPS Commerce in downtown Minneapolis. Where are they up to now? About 1,300 global employees. They had 36 people start around 36 people start in June and 31 in July, and helping them with some mobile developers, DevOps engineers, cloud engineers, things like that. So that's kind of what I'm up to on the work side of things. Real quick, this is a photo from mini demo last week. 1,000 or so folks got together in downtown Minneapolis at Pantages Theater, and great evening. Seven different presentations. They get or 7 different people gave presentations. 7 minutes to do it, all live, sort of demo type stuff. It's a pretty fun event to be able to get together, see old friends, make new ones, and see what's going on in the technology community. So if you were to Google, mini demo, ministar.org, I think is the website off the top of my head, and they just have a new website that debuted just previous to the event last week. So it's a good source of information of what's going on around town. One of the questions that I did receive ahead of time was, where do I get my info on startup and technology news in town? So I did put together quick 3 little screenshots here. One is tech.mn. I'm trying to remember how long that's been around now. It feels like it's been 10 years or so, I suppose. That's where I go to get news on the Minnesota technology scene, startup scene. Next to the news buttons, events. And the event calendar there gives you everything that's going on in town. It's all inclusive, really. That's the place where I go to get a lot of my info. Second place I go to get my info, of course, is the Minneapolis St. Paul Business Journal. Kathy Grayson does a great job covering technology and startup scene here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And then they have a sister publication called Mini Inno. I can never say it right. Mini Inno, just doing the startup scene. Where Kathy sometimes writes sort of like quick news, and then the stuff that goes into the paper on Friday. Mini Inno is doing some more longer sort of information or stories. So like this one was from yesterday, I think. They're doing sort of what they're calling it under the hood, and they're going into, technologies are going into tech companies and kind of interviewing them, see what neighborhoods are like. In this case, they were talking about Northeast Minneapolis. So that's kind of just a quick, like, here's what's going on, here's what's up. Here was sort of the agenda. Now, to kind of give an idea, because someone said, like who's all listening to this, this little chat that we're doing. We've got mostly folks from Minneapolis, St. Paul. I've got a few from we'll call it greater Minnesota, right? The more rural areas. There's some folks here from Chicago, Denver, and then there's a bunch of people from the Bay Area, which I think is a great sign, if you ask me. So that's to kind of give you an idea of who's here and like kind of some of the questions and a few more that I'll add in. So one of the questions, so if you were at Mini Demo or Mini Bar, pardon me, back in April, some of these are the same questions. So this might be a little redundant, but again, jump into the chat box and ask what's on your mind. What is the local job market like right now? It's busier than it was before the Great Recession. So prior to 2007. It's much busier. Companies are definitely in a hiring mode. It's definitely still not pre-dot-com days. The 1999. I always think of Prince when I say 1999. Pre-dot-com days. It hasn't gotten back to that level, and I don't think it will. So folks in the Bay Area are wondering if there's a bubble. I don't think there's a bubble in the Midwest at all. I just think that we've got a lot of promising technology companies, startups. You have Target. Amazon came to town. Originally was going to hire around 100 employees. Then it was around 300. Depending on the rumor mill and what you believe, they are, I think it's 70,000 square feet. If I remember that number right. That might be off, but that might be close. I guess I'm hedging. It's being recorded. But if they have that much square feet now in downtown Minneapolis, then the street says that they're going to be hiring 500 to 800 people now in Minneapolis, in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and that does not then include the fulfillment center out in Shakopee. So that's just technology, folks. I think it's Greater MSP came up with a number a couple of years ago that by 2020, we're short about 100,000 workers. And so the job market's good right now. The economy, my next thing is not a political statement. Post-election, whether you like it or not, isn't my issue. CEOs, decision makers now understand what the economy is going to be like or what's going to be coming out of DC. So they're able to make some decisions, hedge some bets now on what the political and economic climate is going to be like. Look, if GDP continues to meander around 1.5% to 3%, companies are going to be continuing to hire. There was and actually this will be the first time I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to try to get out of my chat box, away from the PowerPoint. Let's see what happens. Minimize. If someone can go to the chat box and tell me what you're seeing now. I'm hoping you're going to see a web page. Oh, your screen sharing is paused. Resume share. Oh, but it's only letting me show my PowerPoint. Oh, that's a bummer. I've got a blog post. I can't show it to you, but if you go to mnheadhunter.com, I did a blog post last week. It's called Survey Minneapolis and Midwest IT Hiring to Increase Second Half of 2017. So that's based on two things. One is a Robert Half survey that came out end of June with a bunch of their numbers. 24% of CIOs say they will increase hiring, and that's up 4% from December. 60% will maintain staff by filling vacant roles. And 63% say that it's somewhat or very challenging to find skilled IT professionals in today's market. And then there's some things about like why the tech hiring. So Amazon and ArcServe, a number of companies and businesses have moved or are opening offices here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. You've got cloud and big data initiatives, digital marketing initiatives, mobile initiatives. But what's interesting to me, and for those of you who are technologists who are listening to this, they had a list of top concerns, and at number 4 was retention at 17%, which I thought was a really drastically low number, given that so many people are hiring, yet they're not worried about retaining their employees. That's in part why the idea for the Midwest Recruiting Bootcamp is to talk about some retention stuff too. Some more of it though is the exodus for the Bay Area. So for those of you from out there, you already know what I'm talking about, but there are people who are looking to be able to afford a house, have a backyard, get married, have kids, not have an hour-and-a-half commute. And so we're trying to not lure, but I've been fishing, so that's the word that comes to mind. We're marketing the opportunities here in the Midwest, and particularly Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so that was that article that I was hoping to show you, but I can't. Another one, for those of you who are doing a job search, because a bunch of you are asking that, sort of job search related questions. There was another survey that came out. This one I think was from Career Builder. It said 70% of employers use social media to screen candidates. Well, we know that. 54% have decided not to hire a candidate based on the social media profile. I think that number is kind of, I'll call it BS. Look, if you're a Fortune 500 company, if you're Best Buy, Target, 3M, of course you've seen one person that you haven't hired because of it. But that's the question. Have you not hired because of this? Well, yeah, I'm sure it's happened one time to almost everyone. But that's not to say that everyone's just completely weeding people out. The other cool part about the survey, 44% say they found things that caused them to hire someone. The one that I wrote about, by the way, was 50% are less likely to interview a candidate they can't find online. I will tell you flat out, if I can't find you online, I think that's weird. You may not agree with that, and I understand. You know what, by the way, I could actually put since you aren't seeing the blog post, you can at least see my blog. So here I am again. I think that if you're not online, you're making a huge mistake. And so, I don't think everyone has to have the super optimized, SEO supercharged website, LinkedIn profile. Is certainly a must, but at least have an online presence so that people can find some more information about you. Let them get to know you, because you're already creeping on the hiring managers and the people you're going to be interviewing with. So you should have something for them to take a look at too. Resume share, stop share. All right, could someone put in the box now what you're seeing? Maybe I figured this out on the fly. I'm gonna pause. Somebody run to your keyboard. Tell me what you're seeing. please, or not. That's okay. So just wanted to run through those sort of like topics for you real quick on the, some of those blog posts. So now I'm going to try to get back to the PowerPoint deck, which I'm hoping now you're seeing again. Okay, so I'm going to take out the video, stop video. So now we should be back to the PowerPoint, or at least the list of questions. So what's the job market like right now? It's a good time to be looking for a job. It's a good time to be networking. If it were me, and I was thinking about 2018 already, I would for sure be starting to do attending events, networking, doing, I don't like the informational interview title or like let's go for coffee, but I would be doing introductions with people now. For those of you who are doing a job search right now, and there's a few of you who have attended a coding boot camp here in town. The issue with hiring, I think companies are still a little slow in the Midwest, maybe less so in Chicago, but they're a little bit slow in the Midwest to hire students, recent grads or boot camps. And that's just going to take some time for them to further warm up to the idea. I think most employers are looking for that 3 to 5 year developer. A number of you heard me say this before. You know, they're looking for a 3 to 5 year developer, but they won't hire someone at 3 months. And I don't have a good answer for you on that, other than to continue to network, explain to employers why it is that your experience previous to a boot camp matters. And now that you're a coder, there was a student from the Iron Yard where I was an advisor, and she had been a school teacher. I think she was a kindergarten teacher, and I explained to her that she actually knows what she actually understands empathy. And so my advice to her is that as she's marketing herself and looking for a job and doing interviews, no disrespect to developers in general, but they are not always the most empathetic. And so I think that if you're a coder or developer and you understand what makes people tick and you want to know why they're doing a certain behavior and how you can get them to do other things, that's an important skill to have. And so think about the skills that you do have. Think about the knowledge that you have pre-boot camp and then now afterwards. Is it a good time to look for a new job? So like, I guess I kind of answered some of that already too, right? The answer is yes, short and sweet. What's a reasonable salary increase year over year? So there were some surveys then since Minibar, and I'm still seeing that companies are saying it's 2 to 4%. I'm still seeing people who are making jumps from one company to another. They're getting 5%, 7%, 10%. Some are getting even a little bit more than that. Those tend to be the outliers. So when you hear someone, got a 20% salary increase, either don't believe it or at least be skeptical and try to figure out the why part. The idea is that some people are grossly underpaid where they're at, and someone else will finally pay them what they deserve for their skills that they have and the education and training that they're bringing. So that's kind of my take on that. I also would suggest that even though it's a great market for technologists to also not get greedy. I think a lot of people are doing that, right? They won't move unless they get a 15% bump. For those of you who are in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, the Midwest, like we live in really large, small towns. My friends in the Bay Area will be laughing at that comment because they don't know what it's like to live in a really large, small town. They live in a really large town. But arrogance here, being a jerk here doesn't play well. And so for those of you on the West Coast, kind of be aware, like kind of think back to your Midwest roots for those of you who have them as you're doing your job search here in the Midwest. Should I stay a developer or move into management? I said during Minibar back in April that I would, being a lead developer, being a senior technologist is great, but there are just fewer and fewer management jobs. There are, when teams used to be 5 and 10 and now they're 15 and 20, there just are fewer management roles. And I know that a couple of you are looking like, I want to get into a CTO role in the next few years. And you already know, because you said that, it's been a bit of a slog to find that, senior director, VP type role, not quite CTO role yet. It's difficult. So that's the part about networking way in advance. But I'm thinking about moving to a fill in the blank city. So I've had people say I'm looking to move to Minneapolis, St. Paul. I've had people say I'm looking to move to San Francisco or the Bay Area or Denver or Austin, Texas or wherever. The answer about should you go is one part professional, one part personal. I answer the personal one first, which is it time for you to go? Like, do you have the ability to go? Do you have a network established? If not, are you okay with creating one on the fly? Or are you okay with not even having one when you first get there? So that's sort of the personal answer. The city answer, the specific city answers are a little bit different. I don't want to bash the West Coast, the Valley, or San Francisco, but the cost of living, there was one this spring, and there's another group now, developers from Minneapolis. There's 5 of them that are going out there. They're renting a house together. They've already signed a 2-year lease. And the 5 of them are spending a lot of money, like a whole lot of money, on a really crappy Rambler. And their idea, though, is they wanted to go experience the Bay Area, and I think that's a great idea. But again, they're only doing it for a couple of years with the idea of trying to figure out what they want to do. Austin, Texas is a fantastic location. I've got a couple of friends who are moving there. Well, actually, one just did and one will right before Labor Day. And but the issue with Austin, look, we've all got pluses and minuses, right? So if for those of you in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area are thinking, you know, we've got the cold weather, we do. For those of you not from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, it's also not frozen here 9 months out of the year like you think it is. You know what, winter's a challenge here. Every city has a challenge. I was speaking with a friend of mine who's going to be speaking at the Midwest Recruiting Boot Camp, and she's down in Dallas. And I think the temperature there is going to be 102 today, give or take. My friends in Austin will tell you that traffic sucks and it's only getting worse by the day. The infrastructure down there just can't handle it. So every city has pluses and minuses. I would suggest, though, of course, go play that out. I mean, go find out is what I mean. Research it. Ask people who are there. I don't want to spend much time on this next one, the recruiter spam. This is the part about how you know a job market is hot or when it's not. If you're getting a lot of recruiter spam, meaning unsolicited messages, poorly worded messages, it's that recruiters, whether the corporate search firm, consulting firm recruiters, are moving at a really fast pace. They are tending to do what I will call the shotgun, sorry for the gun reference, but it's a shotgun method where they are just blasting it out as far as they can. Instead of being a little more specific and a little more targeted about things. So that's why that's going on. The how much personal info should you give a corporate search firm recruiter? I'm going to actually rephrase this question, is how do I find one? How do I find a good corporate recruiter? How do I find a good search firm recruiter? It's a very simple thing. Ask your friends. Post on Facebook, who do you know who's a good search firm recruiter in marketing in Minneapolis? Who do you know who's a search firm recruiter who deals with senior executives in technology in the Bay Area? Like, be specific about it. That's how I would do it. It also could be, does anybody know does anyone know a technology recruiter at Best Buy, Target, Amazon, you know, Facebook, Google, whatever those company names are. That's how I would go about finding them, because your friends have had really bad experiences with some recruiters, and they've also had really good ones, and that's where to find them. How much info you should give is the same answer that you should just pretty much do for everyone, right? Like, you want to give up some information in order for a corporate or search firm recruiter to help you. But again, like, I would be a little, I guess I'd be a little cautious, not a lot cautious, but I would wait to develop, I want to develop a relationship with someone if I'm doing a job search. Then the last one, I'm not a tech person, but I want to work with a tech company. How do I get one? One of my other screenshots is, like, I would go to, for here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, go to tech.mn. They just did a blog post, I think it's yesterday, with the last quarter's venture capital funding of groups in town. So if you're in marketing, sales, customer service, operations, customer care, any kinds of those titles, even though you're not a coder or developer, like, you know, any company at 20 employees to 150 employees is going to need someone like you, and if not now, you know, sooner or later. And so reach out to CEOs, reach out to CTOs, CMOs, VP of sales or whatnot, and ask them, like, hey, like, you know, my name is, and I am and I want to get into the technology space. Is my background something you'd be looking at? And if it's not, then ask them, like, what would you need to see from me so that you can kind of get ahead of the curve, so to speak. All right, so that's my ramble. That's my 20-minute ramble, or give or take, actually 25 probably. So my question is then, and let me go back and turn on my video. It's still weird to see my video, and actually I'm seeing it on both my right and my left eye because of my display screen. So waving again. What do you want to know? Like, what's on your mind? What's of interest to you? I know that a couple of you actually have a stand up at 1:30, and so if you want to quick drop your question in now, that would help before you guys got to take off. So one of the questions being, what's the cost of living adjustment from here to the Bay Area, or for the Bay Area to here? Roughly a third. I see the numbers as low as like 25, 28%, and as high as 40. Got a question from the Bay Area about, what's an average length of commute in Minneapolis? I don't know what the average length is. I know that pretty much anyone who has more than a half-hour commute here gets ornery. So one of you has already got a bunch of smiley faces. The idea is that here a half-an-hour commute. So I moved way west of Minneapolis. It's a half-hour commute with no traffic. If I leave during rush hour, it might take me 45 to 55 minutes. That's frustrating to me. So just gauge it that way. That's our commute times. Cost of living, again, what those five developers are going to pay in the Bay Area versus what they could have here is, night and day for the size of house that they could be getting. So there's a question about like, what's the hottest sort of developer needs right now? I'm going to say yes. We have a lot of large companies in town who are .NET and Java shops. A lot of them have mobile initiatives going on. That goes back to that survey I mentioned earlier about why the hiring from Robert Half. A lot of the startups, Ruby, obviously one of the big things. DevOps, huge need in our town. DevOps, cloud engineers, folks with AWS background. There's a lot of those initiatives going on, which also, again, mirrors that Robert Half survey. Mobile developers, that's a duh. So it's pretty much if you're in technology right now. Now, I am seeing, like, I don't, even for the large companies, like help desk, tech support type systems administration roles are really difficult to find. And most of those, to find them, are networking ones. The banks in town, we've got a number of large financial services groups, and not shocker that some of them are having a hard time finding COBOL developers since it hasn't been around or taught in a school in a really long time. Many of them are doing some interesting, and I know that one of you is, yes, that lots of later aged, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Don't be offended. Later aged works, okay. COBOL developers are job sharing. They're working 20 hours a week. They're just doing some administration of things on their own time. And so, so there is something about trying a nursing home for COBOL developers. I don't even know what to do with that one, Steve. So essentially, though, like technology, like it's across the board for hiring right now. They're also TCF has an Oracle, I think it's an Oracle Cloud Initiative going on. So we're really like pretty much everything to some sense or degree. Now, I'm also not one of those folks who's like, demand is so intense and there's negative unemployment. Like, look, like there have been layoffs this spring and summer that have freaked some people out. The one bit of advice I would give any technologist is just because you're in demand doesn't mean you can't be let go. Like companies are going to do what companies need to do to be able to match earnings, to keep shareholders happy and to grow. And so at times you as a technologist are going to be, let go. Like that just happens. I was going to say, you're not into, even if you're Superman or Wonder Woman, companies are going to go through things. And so that is the idea of attending user group events, attending meetups, networking, things like that. Hold on. I got to scroll up on the question thing. So how important are personal contacts versus finding jobs online? If I were looking for a job in Minneapolis, St. Paul, again, going back to like, let's do the startup scenario for a minute, go to tech.mn, go to the jobs page. If you're in marketing or sales, a non-tech role, start finding people who know people in that company or finding people you know who are there. So use LinkedIn as a tool that way. That's an absolute. It's also interesting to me that for as many tech jobs as there are in town available, if you go to Indeed, tech.mn, Monster, anywhere else, there's actually not a lot of them posted. And hence again, why I want to do the Midwest Recruiting Bootcamp. in a couple of weeks is it's hard for me to justify, try this again, it's hard for me to come to understand why companies are having a hard time finding people when they're not letting people know what they're hiring, right? There's a weird separation in there somewhere. Personal contacts, again, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Midwest, very people-oriented. The whole 6 degrees of separation, was that Kevin Bacon from however long ago? Minneapolis, I joked that it's like 2.25. You can get to anyone in Minneapolis. And the circle's just smaller, right? So if you're networking from the outside coming in, find some people that, find your friends in the Bay Area who are from the Minneapolis area and see if you can get introduced to them. Those people will then help you from there. So I would rely more on personal contacts than finding jobs online. Like I would use that just as a resource. Yes, go to Indeed, go to Monster, go to Tech.MN, go to wherever. Don't rely on that though, because that's just not the only place where jobs are. Attended a recruiters roundtable yesterday and all were dismissive of Career Builder and Monster as a way to find candidates. Where do you suggest candidates post their resumes, if anywhere? First of all, so this is being recorded and I don't want to jump off a cliff here, but I think that's also silly. If you're recruiting, and for the recruiters who are on this, who are listening to find out what's going on in Minneapolis, St. Paul, right? If you're not posting jobs somewhere, like, I don't understand that. It's marketing. It's marketing 101. You need to let people know that you have jobs. And someone that is sure they're going to type in, well, but our jobs aren't finding the people that we're looking for. That's probably true. I also want to know if the jobs are actually written for you or for the candidates you're trying to attract. And so there's a technology friend who just typed AMAT, right? It's the idea that companies continue to have this long wish list of what they're looking for in an employee, but they never say, here's what's in it for you. Here's the cool things you're going to work on. Here's what your team's going to be like. And they'll say that their benefits or their cool things really are just like, oh, 3 weeks vacation and health and dental. Great. You know what? Everyone's doing that. If your benefit is that you can work an occasional Friday from home, if it's you can work 4 10-hour days, I don't think a benefit is that you have a stocked kitchen, because the only reason why you have a stocked kitchen is because your people are putting in more than 40 hours a week. That might be an oversimplification, but that's how I feel about it. So where should candidates post their resumes? Like if I'm in technology right now, I don't know if I'm actually going to be posting my resume in many places, if at all, unless I'm moving, right? I'm going to put out on LinkedIn looking for a new role in Denver, in Kansas City, in the Bay Area, in Minneapolis. I still would post my job, or I would still post my resume on Monster, Career Builder, Dice, for the technology space. But I would flip it though, instead of just posting a resume and hoping that someone's going to contact me, because you may or may not, I'm going to be more aggressive and go try to do my job search way more aggressively, if that's an okay way to post. If that's an okay way to put it. Thoughts? Yeah. Hey, Mike, by the way. What's up? What are your thoughts on specializing versus having experience across many technologies and skills? And this question was asked twice during Minibar, and I don't have an answer for you. Here are my opinions. Take them for what it's worth. 2 or 3 years ago, at different startups in town, you had front-end developers and back-end developers. And at some point in time, about 18 months ago, particularly in the Midwest, you started seeing full-stack developers. And some companies said full-stack because they wanted somebody who could do 80% front-end, 20% back-end, or the inverse, right? Some people are just trying to find 2 people in one. And that's a difficult thing. And it's difficult to find someone who has done, both Java and knows Ruby on the side. Like, that's kind of on technologists to be able to start diversifying their skill set a bit, but there's also not a lot of people who have that. I used to say to folks, like, there are some skill sets right now that I think you can go all in on for quite a while. If you go all in on mobile for a while, you're going to be okay. I would, JavaScript is, like here in Minneapolis, it used to be you have about 50 to 80, maybe 100 people attend the JavaScript meetup. And now you're getting 110 to 130. And then you have an Ember Node, Angular Backbone meetup as well on separate nights. And so do you just go JavaScript minus the framework, or do you just go all in on a framework? And this is the part, though, where I say that you have to keep up to date on your skill set. I've been saying this since the Great Recession. It doesn't matter if you're a technologist or not. I can't just be a tech recruiter. I need to be a tech recruiter who also understands building teams, culture, understands the online world and marketing and branding and things like that. That I can't just be a post and pray type recruiter, or I will be outdated. Just like I think that if you're a developer and you only do .NET, I mean, granted, that's going to be around, you get what I mean? But demand, there will be other things, and you may get pigeonholed. You may get stuck in a stack. I think part of it depends on age, frankly. Like, what should you do? Should you specialize on one, or just be a, you know, I always think of people as like, are you an all-star second baseman, or are you a utility infielder, right? Because an all-star second baseman career might be great but short. I like utility players, so maybe I go into the know enough about a bunch of things. I think if we were to Google that right now, if I could flip my screen over and we could do, I bet you we would find the pros and cons all over the place. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, start there. I think that if you're a Ruby developer, if you're a mobile developer, if you understand working in the cloud environment, you're going to be okay. And maybe I'll just leave that part there for a minute. But Mike, if you want to reach out, email, Twitter, whatever, we can catch up more on that one too. So a couple of these I've already answered. How important is culture in hiring right now? And I think it's for the smart groups, it's everything. The number of times I've heard in the last 3 months, I mean, I've heard it twice this week, that we don't hire assholes. And we hire for trajectory, not for past experience. That it's okay to be a junior developer who's really intuitive, who understands people, who gets empathy. There are, I'm going to go off on a tangent. Let me come back to that question in a second. I think I said it, this year's mini bar certainly have at every user group since, or in the past year. If you're a technologist, learn the business side of things. So learn how to talk to an end user, a customer, a CTO who's not a technologist, right, in the sense of they're not a coder, to a CMO, to a CEO. Learn how to talk the business side of things. If you're on the business side of things, learn some code, learn some basic things. Just learn like how to do an email newsletter type code. You know what I mean? Like be able to do fonts and paragraphs and indents and bolds type things. And even if it's a what you see, what you get at, or don't care. What I'm saying is that was learn some technology things. I can't outsource or offshore a technologist who can bridge to the product team what the requirements were and why they're difficult. I can't outsource or offshore a developer who can talk to an end user or a customer, and I certainly can't offshore one or outsource one who can be in a product demo with a customer or a client. So I know that for a lot of developers, there's the stereotype that I'm an introvert. By the way, so am I. That I'm an introvert and I don't deal well with people. Okay, but that's not an excuse to not to learn how. So take that for what it's worth. And hopefully I didn't offend anyone. Okay, so those are the questions I have so far. What else might y'all have? I'm getting some salary questions, some very specific ones that I'll respond to via email one-on-one, because some of these are obviously very specific situations that are going on now. Something I mentioned during mini bar that someone's asking now too. Yeah, create a portfolio of what you're doing throughout the year. What was the result of the code you wrote? What was the result of that fix that you as a DevOps engineer had? For the marketing people too, don't just say you grew an email newsletter 52%, but be ready for the how and the why. Have screenshots of logos before and after. If you're a UI UX designer, obviously it's actually shocking to me that there are people who don't have a portfolio when they're in UI and UX and they're designers. They actually don't. They don't have stuff that they can share right away. Maybe some of it's proprietary information, I understand that, but still, like have that stuff available. That's what I have. Like, I didn't know if we would go an hour or not, or 40 minutes or so. I don't want to keep y'all. I know a couple people have already jumped out for those stand-ups and stuff. So let's just do that. Let me end it here, unless someone wants to quick say, hey, wait. So let me wait about 10 or 15 seconds. I'll jump off. Here's what I'm going to do. I don't know if that slide deck would be of any value to you at all, but I will send you the link to this so that you can listen or watch it later, pass it on to your friends. That's cool. I'm trying to think what's next coming up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, by the way. So DevOps, actually it's DevOps Days. I don't even know, was it this week, next week? They were expecting hundreds of people to attend. FARCon, Finance and Retail Conference, I think is what the acronym is for. It's the next mini analytics event. Oh, yeah, so DevOps, thank you. DevOps Days next week, or DevOps Minneapolis next week. FARCon's the end of August. Go to Mini Analytics to look up that. Twin Cities Startup Week is the, how am I blanking on that one? Second week in, since you can't, I don't think you can see my screen, but let me at least try to quick. Okay, that didn't work. Hold on. Twin Cities Startup Week is October 9th to the 15th. That's obviously a very critical event for the technology community. It's Target's a huge sponsor of this. So also, I think that Techstars Retail just announced their new class for, I don't think they did, they announced their new class for this summer. So I don't want to ramble any more than that. And I can't find my window to do things. So that's kind of weird. Oh, it's up here. Like I said, this is all kind of new. I hope this format works okay for you. I'm going to do these probably once a month, maybe once a month, something to that effect. If you got any questions, thoughts, comments, send me an email. I appreciate you hanging out with me. So thanks for hanging out. I just said that twice. I don't know how to end this. How about I just go with, have a good day. We'll see you later. Thanks.